What's going on, y'all? Coach Nick here with Valor Fitness, and today we're going to go over the assembly of the CB-29, also known as the Glute Ham Developer. It's going to come in 2 boxes. Open them up, grab your manual, and do a cross-reference with the parts list to make sure that you have all the parts and pieces that you need. And you're also going to need a 17 and 14 millimeter socket and socket wrench. Once you've confirmed all of this, go ahead and move everything off to the side. You have a clear working space, and let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start here on page 7 with part 1. It's got the wheels in the back. We're going to get part 20 and we're going to attach it to the bottom. Now I already have one here just so you can see what it looks like. It's just going to be our rubber stopper for the bottom. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take our rubber stopper. Now you're going to look at the rubber stopper and you're going to see that there's a metal ring on the inside. That part should be closer to the frame, whereas if it was flipped upside down, there's more space and you want that to be pointed towards the ground. So we're going to put our bolt in. Our 8x16, we're going to slide it in the hole and hold it there. You get your small washer, place it on top. Then you get your nut, finger tighten that. Once you got it on there about finger tight, you're going to take one of these tools that we gave you that's got a larger end and a smaller end. You're going to take the smaller end, that's that 14 millimeter. You're going to place it inside over the nut so that it's held in place. And then that hex wrench that you have, the smaller one, that's what we're going to use to tighten down that bolt that's in part 20. And then from here, just spin it. And then once you get a little bit of resistance, that means it's all the way on. And we're done with part 1. Now step 2, we're going to attach part 1 to part 14. Now part 14, it doesn't matter which way it's facing, forward, backwards, upside down. You're totally fine because it's all the same. So go ahead and get it jutted up against part 1 here. Take your bolt and pay attention to directions of the bolts on the manual. You're going to go through part 1 first from wheel side in, and then you get part 14, line it up, and then you're going to finger tighten it on the back side with a washer and a nut. And then now it can hang out here, it won't roll or slide, and go ahead and do the opposite side. And then once you get that all attached, go ahead and grab your drill and your wrench and go ahead and just tighten it down so you have a good secure frame moving forward. Now when you're tightening these bolts down throughout the whole process, tighten them down just till you start to hear a little bit of resistance, either with the drill or with the socket, and it's hard to pull. Stop after that, because once you get any more pressure, then you're going to bend the metal and it can affect the integrity of the frame of the piece of equipment. Now we're going to move on to step 3, where we're going to put part 9 and part 12 under part 1. Now with part 9, it's going to be holding plates for future reference, so make sure it goes up at an angle and it's not this way. So when you're using the piece of equipment, the plate has a potential to slide down. So again, make sure it's facing up towards the top of the equipment. So what we're going to do here is place part 12 on. Now you want the logo to face up. Slide a washer down your bolt. And I like to put it in the top side first so I can see it better. Slide it all the way through. And then go ahead and get part 9 here. Again, just let it hang out up there, but make sure it's facing up. And then finger tighten a nut on the back side. Now we can just go ahead and hands free, put this piece of equipment in. We don't have to hold anything. All the way through. Washer, nut. And don't tighten it down just yet because we're about to attach it to part 14 here. So now we're going to attach part 12 to 14. So we have our 70 millimeter bolts. We're going to go from bottom up because this part's going to be flush to the ground. And we can't have this extra thread sticking out. So we'll put our washer and nut. There we go. And then same thing here on the bottom. And if you want, you can even tip it over like so. Just go ahead and hang on to it, and we'll tighten it down. So now we're going to polish off the remaining steps of page 7. We're going to take part 18, slide it down part 9. Till it's all the way flush. You're going to get your socket cap bolt and a 10mm washer. Go ahead and finger thread it in. And then once it's threaded in, go ahead and grab your larger Allen key and thread that thing down. Once it's all the way in, go ahead and take your rubber washer all the way down of 18. And then we're going to grab our end cap here and push it on in. And last but not least, you're going to take your end caps for part 19 and you're going to slide it over part 1. Your hand is not a hammer, right? So if you have trouble pushing these on, go ahead and grab a rubber mallet and just give it a little tap. That way it'll protect your hand and the equipment as well. So now we're moving on to page 8. We're going to step 1, where we're going to attach 14 to part 8 and part 5 here. So first thing you want to do is get your bolts, 95, slide it through 14, and then through part 5 all the way through. Make sure it's flush with 14. Then you're going to get part 8, and you want this lip facing towards the forks. Put your thumb on the bolt and slide part 8 over. And then from here, throw a washer and a nut on top so that it's finger tight. But also this part stays in place. And go ahead and repeat the same thing on the other side. You might have to do a little bit maneuvering of the parts so that they fit and they line up. There we go. Then we get our washer and nut on the other side. And we'll keep this one finger tight now before we move on to the next step. Now on step 2, we're going to attach both of the part 10s here to part 5. And they're eventually going to attach here to part 8. So you're going to go from the bottom, thread through, hold it there in place, get a nut and a washer, and go ahead and get it finger tight to start off. And this way, again, we can let go and grab the other side here. And then we'll go ahead and get the bottom side. Good. We'll keep it finger tight for now, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So now we're going to attach both of the 10s to part 8, threading from right to left with our 8x70 bolt. So line those holes up. Good. Once you got one bolt in place, go ahead and finish it off with a washer and a bolt. Again, get it finger tight. Finish the other side off, and then we'll go ahead and tighten all of them down that we just did, bottom and top. Now we're going to attach part 12 to part 8 with our 90mm bolt. So line it up here. And then finish off with a washer and a nut, finger tight. Now it'll stay in place. And then we'll do the same thing with the bottom. We'll keep that one finger tight until we move on to the next step. Now we're going to attach 12 to 14 from the bottom up with our 70mm bolts. So slide through, and then we'll go ahead and do the other side here. Again, you might have to finagle part 12 here a little bit to get the holes to line up, but once you do, you're all good to go. And then now all the bolts are in place, part 12 is in place, we'll go ahead and tighten everything down. Now we're going to move on to step 6, where we're going to take part 6 and place it on part 8. It's going to go on the back side of part 8, so it's facing away from the forks. And when we thread our bolts through, they need to be threaded front to back. So we'll go through part 8 first, then through part 6. We'll hold it there and put a washer and nut on so it's finger tight and we can just let it hang essentially. And then we'll go ahead and grab the top side here. Now we're going to move on to page 9 and we're going to work on the back half of the CB-29. We're going to start off here with part 2. We're going to slide it into part 1 all the way through. You're going to hit a pull pin here, so go ahead and pull it out so the piece of equipment can slide in. Once it locks in, just go ahead and tighten it down so there's less movement here. Now we're going to go to part 3. And you want these openings to be facing the front of the machine. So slide it down part 2. And again, you're going to have a pull pin. So slide it down. And then go ahead and lock it in. Good. Now we're going to work on this back plate, which is the next step. We're going to slide that in here till the holes line up. Go ahead and let it hang there. And we're going to take our 8 by 45 millimeter bolt. And we're just going to go ahead and lock it in place so our feet have a static place to be held. I'm going to get a washer and a nut on the bottom here, and then we'll go ahead and tighten it up with our drill. Now we're moving on to steps 4 and 5. We're going to take both part 15s here. We're going to slide them into the loop of part 3. And just try to get them midway through to start off. Good. Now we're going to get our metal rings here. You'll have 2 of them. One's going to be bigger and one's going to be smaller in terms of the opening. I want the bigger one to go on first, and you want it to bow away from the middle so that it's going towards the outside, so it'll hug the cushion that you're going to be putting your calves and ankles behind. So we got that one on there. Now we're going to work on our roll pads here. So hold the pole, slide that on, and just kind of rotate it, push it down till it gets tight, but nothing crazy. And just go ahead and work all the way down on these. Get them all in place. Should be pretty easy. And then once you have all 4 of these on, we'll go ahead and get these metal circles that have the smaller hole. And then what we're going to do is use our small hex wrench. And we're going to screw it into place. So thread it by hand first, again, just to get it in place. And then use that hex wrench and the leverage to get it nice and taut. But again, not too tight. Just get a little bit of resistance back. Good. And once that's in place, we're on to the next one. Now on the back of part 2, you're going to put this M10 by 16 baby bolt here. And what this does is this stops part 2 from sliding all the way out. So I've got my stopper, my pull pin, pulled all the way out. Now with that bolt there, when I go to pull this, that bolt's going to hit and it won't come out. So it's just a security thing. So we tighten that back up just so it's nice and snug. And then here we have our band pegs that we're going to slide in. And again, it's got 3 holes here for different tensions and different body lengths. So whatever you're comfortable with, that's what I recommend. So now we're moving on to our final page, page 10, with step 1. We're going to start over here. We're going to take part 11 and 13, and we're going to place it on top of part 8, making sure the holes line up. And we're going to go from the top down with our 60 millimeter bolts, the larger ones, all the way down. And again, keep some pressure on this so it doesn't tip in any direction. And now that we have it secure on top, we'll put a washer and a nut on the bottom and just go ahead and get it finger tight so that it stays in place for us. We'll go ahead and tighten everything down. Now in step 2, we're gonna take both part 28s and attach it to part 11 with our 45mm bolts. So go ahead and place it on top. You're gonna have to get below or beneath it. You can even tip the machine over if you like. And then from here, feed it through, make sure it lines up, get it a little finger tight. And then with your 14mm socket, go ahead and get it all the way up in. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the back side. Now we're going on to step 3, and we're gonna take part 29 and place it on part 6 here. So what I like to do is place it down, thread a bolt through part 6, line it up with a pad, finger tight thread it in there, and then repeat this process all the way down. And then once they're all threaded in, then we can tighten them up. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really do hope this video helped. If you have any further questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to give us a call or email us at info@valorfitness.com. Thank you.